So welcome to the Walking with Wolseley e-resource. I'm basically going to walk you through and suggest some ideas that would make my art appreciation and art practice activity more effective for you to use in your classroom. So the whole purpose is basically to engage students with the whole subject matter that Wolseley used, which was nature. So I think taking kids out to experience a natural landscape and to actually be in the context itself works best, because I think it teaches them that art doesn't always necessarily have to be practiced inside all the time, say in a classroom or art studio. So in this case I've chosen the Moonee Ponds Creek, and you can obviously choose a community park or local reserve that's most convenient for you. The approach that best suits my art practice activity really shows how Wolseley becomes quite ingrained with his subject matter. So have your students ready with their sketchbooks and charcoal or lead pencils in hand, and go and let them explore the landscape. Release them and let them see, the different types of flora and fauna, let them hear the birds, follow the insects, let them feel for themselves and touch the different textures of the plants, its leaves, its bark, sticks. Even have them collect natural materials that they find and that they might like to use to make their own artwork of the creek back in the classroom, but also remind them to, of course, be mindful of nature. Don't let them go ripping out plants and chase away ducks. It's really important to sort of ground that respect towards the environment. So Wolseley's approach looked closely at the small and often forgotten components of nature. So things like insects, barks, leaves, stems, and he focuses closely on these, and then he starts to span out towards the bigger picture. So sort of have students follow these little systems, have them look closely, and then have them realise how the smallest worlds can become the biggest and express what they sort of find and what they want to focus their sketches on, and draw what they see and how they perceive it. So some of the different textures that I came across during my venture into the Moonee Ponds Creek include looking at the ground, like different stones, passing by rocks. Kids are so often, attracted to the plants and different animals around, but also rocks have such a unique texture about them, whether it's rough, smooth, coarse. Get students to really feel the different textures for themselves and notice the shapes of all the different rocks, different sizes. Also the colours of the rocks as well, the earthy orange and reds, the warm colours and the rustic surfaces of these rocks, and how they all play a part in their story. Dried leaves and grasses as well. Kids can often feel how dry they are and start thinking about, okay, how can I actually incorporate these natural materials into my artwork? I mean, you don't want to have kids collect a whole bunch of raw materials and just stick them on a piece of paper with glue. I mean, that's besides the point. Wolseley, he really collaborated with these different materials, and he thought outside the square. So try and have your students think about, okay, how will I actually use, different barks that I come across? How will I use these sticks? How will I use these dry leaves and twigs and things, and how can I actually use them to apply different mediums, whether it's paint or watercolours? How could I use it to brush it on? Would I wash over the watercolour? Would I use leaves to print different colours onto my artwork? Would I use it to smudge charcoal? How could I use these different raw materials to give a textural effect to my artwork? So these are just a recollection of the objects that you may come across in the landscape that you decide to use. And I just wanted to finish up with saying that the more students use their senses to perceive nature and to appreciate art, the more inspired they'll be when they do take away their raw materials back to the classroom. So having that outdoor experience will definitely trigger their minds, they'll trigger their imagination, ideas, and inspire them to really think outside the square, to really collaborate with the materials that they have in their hands. Wolseley also wanted his audience to realise that nature can provide us with things that we don't necessarily think or often think twice about. He inspires, audiences, artists, children even, to venture outside into their own backyard. And I really do think that the more students experiment and explore outside, the more inspired and creative they become inside.